Hey guys, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. I'm really honored today to have Lee from Inside the Distance and Joe from Joe Stunner Boxing. The three of us have done a collaboration once previously, and we enjoyed doing that. So I thought we would do it again. Um, we often chat on various WhatsApp groups and things like that. So we thought it would be a good idea to bring one of these chats to our collective subscribers so that people can see what we're really all about. The first thing I've got to eat is some humble pie. I had predicted Johnny Fischer to win on points, which of course was a totally erroneous prediction. I'm happy I made that prediction and I got it wrong because I wanted Dave Allen to win. But Lee actually did predict it, not just the winner, but method of victory. So Lee, why don't we just hand it over to you, and you can tell us all about Johnny Fischer and Dave Allen too.
Well, first off, let me just preface anything I say by saying I've got a few wrong lately. I think the last one I might have got right was Bivol Beterbiev too. Well, it was just, as I said in a sort of a post-fight review video, it was to me very much a case of evidently the gulf in experience, class, and ability and knowledge was massive. And had Dave Allen been shot, or this could happen with any two fighters, if the guy with all that knowledge and experience, massively clear advantages in every area, is shot and on the slide, then it can balance itself out. But Dave Allen, in reality, hasn't had a hard career, really, other than sort of David Price and maybe a couple of others. But he's still fairly fresh. And I just thought the gulf was just insurmountable. And Johnny Fischer's a brave fella, and I don't think he's devoid of talent, but that gap is just too large to bridge for me.
So why were you so convinced that Dave Allen would do it by knockout? Because you were solid on that from the get-go.
Same again, and I think Dave Allen said this since. When you know you can hurt someone, and you know that they're a little bit too green to use defense cleverly enough to close that door for you, and that door still remains open, it's really quite nuts and bolts. It's by the numbers. So yeah.
Joe, what did you? I think, like me, you you predicted a Johnny Fischer win, if I'm not mistaken.
Point.
What's your takeaway from the Fischer Allen story here?
Well, I think Lee kind of hit it on the head, didn't he? I predicted points for Fischer also. I thought he'd probably box two orders. He's not a particularly talented guy, although he does the basics well. You never know what Dave's going to turn up, do you? Because Dave Allen, even for this one, he wasn't particularly in physical shape, but he did have that sort of serene confidence about him, which was really noticeable. And whereas Johnny he had a lot of nervous energy from the word go, and he was using up big gulps of energy. Yeah, he old manned him, didn't he, in a sense? But Dave Allen has always had talent. He just doesn't always use it. And conditioning is and also perhaps a psychological quirk that he's got, where he's probably a lot better than he thinks he is. I don't know whether he's, they talk about daring to be great, don't they? You've got to have some guts to say, yeah, I can do this, because then you run the risk of disappointing yourself and others. Dave seems to have that self-sabotage element to his character, but not on Saturday. No, I mean, he did what he had to do, and it was one of his best performances, I think, without question.
Yeah, I was very worried when I saw him at the weigh-in, because that had always been a concern of mine, is that he would not train properly. Like, I'm with Lee. I think the three of us are on the same page that in a skills equation, there's a skills gap between Fischer and Allen. But I thought that Allen would have to come in fitter than he was, and when he didn't look fitter, I must confess that I kind of panicked. And yeah, I mean, where do these guys go from here, guys? What do you think?
First of all, I want to say as well, I think Dave Allen gave something quite major away in the cards on the table thing. I know we all saw that, but he kind of won the fight there, because he He let it
Yeah.
slip out when he was talking to Dave, or when he was talking to Johnny, where he said, "You could win this really easily if you boxed me, but you won't. I'll draw you into a fight." And it seems like the whole Fischer camp got sold on that, and they went in there with a bit of an intention to box a little bit, and they took all Johnny's advantages away because that's not his game. He is the Romford Bull, and I think Dave, it was kind of sealed then almost.
Actually, that's a really good point. Um, that cards on the table thing, besides being actually a really good show, it showed that Dave Allen had the ability to really mentally master Johnny Fischer, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, in a respectful way though, almost.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like there were times when I didn't realize what Dave Allen was doing, and I was thinking, "Oh yeah, I see what you did there."
Yeah,
But he was the dominant uh, mind in that discussion that the two had. I enjoyed that show though. I thought it was really good. It's just those two guys.
yeah, same. Yeah,
It had the air of one of those Saturday nights, Sky shows, didn't it? Do you remember from about 15 years ago that they maybe when Eddie was first started with Sky and they would put these things on a Saturday night, good domestic level card, yeah, and a lot of fun to attend. It looked like it anyway. It looked like the atmosphere was great.
Yeah, I thought it was it showed that you don't have to be a big marquee name to put
No,
on a good performance, like something that
yeah,
is appealing to fans and people watching around the world online.
I think I said that in the preview. I think that it's one of the only sports, one of the only arenas where you can get what is really, you know, in professional terms, it's it's below mid-level. You would say it's around British title level, maybe, probably a bit under that, especially for Johnny Fischer. But it can still capture the attention of all boxing fans pretty much, and not a lot of not a lot of other sports have the ability to do that, which is a great thing. It was one of the reasons why our sport is wonderful. Combat sports in general can do that. Not other sports don't seem to be able to do that.
Well, certainly, I mean, we've seen now, four sort of uh, fighters who are not elite. I'm thinking Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, Dave Allen, and Johnny Fischer on two separate cards, put on really good value for money entertainment. And then in between those two, we had the cream of American boxing and the cream of Mexican and arguably worldwide boxing put on absolutely tight performances.
yeah, yeah. That
Is
was a
that
horror.
down to, yeah, sorry, Joe, go on, Joe.
I was just going to say that was a horror show. I mean that. But in fairness, if you looked at the Times Square card on paper, it looked all right. But
Yeah.
the fight didn't make they didn't make enough effort, at least to entertain. I mean, a couple of the fighters didn't make enough effort to win. I'm thinking of Mr. Skull from Germany, who I never want to see in a boxing ring again against Canelo, and Ryan Garcia was a washout. And these are guys getting enormous amounts of money, but would you want to watch them again? I wouldn't.
Honestly,
No,
if William Skull is on a card again, that's going to
Yeah,
be a disincentive to me to want to watch it.
yeah,
Like really, I mean, other than having a YouTube channel and feeling sort of obligated to look at it,
yeah.
if I see William Skull's name, I'm thinking I want to watch show jumping on TV or something.
If that had been in Britain, he'd have had his purse withheld. If that was
Yeah,
a
you
British
think
title,
so? Yeah.
and rightly
do
so.
do you think there was, Tim Bradley made the point that some people say it was because he was around an era where they didn't have the same kind of money, but do you agree where he said it was down to the fact that essentially these real marquee fighters are just spoiled?
There's a lot
I
of
think
truth in it.
I think it's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're it's the old silk pajamas line, isn't it, from Marvin Hagler? Difficult to get up in the morning when you're wearing silk pajamas. I mean, how many tens of millions does Canelo need? People pick apart Julio Cesar Chavez Sr.'s resume. I think he had 108 wins and 60 feet, something along those lines. And what they forget is that Chavez Senior used to pay back his fans, most of whom were poor. He would take non-title fights between the title fights against, people that, of course, he was always going to beat. They weren't elite fighters, but then he'd charge a pittance for them to get in to watch it. Can you imagine Canelo doing that? He won't get out of bed for less than 50 million, will he?
I mean, that's a really good point. There were other champions who would also take non-championship fights, and to show people around the world when boxing was a lot more widespread popularity back in the day as well. But yeah, I don't think Canelo does anything for, less than $25 million kind of thing.
I think I heard Canelo say before the Madrimov fight that he takes 80% of every purse when he fights.
Yeah, it's an 80-20 split. I've read that as well. Yeah. And, to the point of, boxers being so wealthy, I read somewhere that Ben Whittaker is already a pound sterling millionaire. And he hasn't actually yet accomplished anything. And so where is that drive and that hunger when people are so wealthy with generational wealth?
I mean, I don't essentially have a problem with Canelo earning the monies that he's earned, because it's kind of like if any tradesman, and they may pay a certain amount by the hour, and the customer might think, well, by the hour, that's a lot of money. But remember, with the tradesman, you're paying for the years of experience, the years of training, the tools he's had to buy along the way.
Yeah.
You're paying for the whole thing. And it's kind of the same with fighters. They might get paid that money for a fight, but look at the career they've had. Look at when they was amateur. Look at they were boxing as a kid. So you're getting paid back for all that investment as well. So I don't essentially have a problem with fighters earning. I've said this before. I don't have a problem with fighters earning any amount of money. But of course, when it gets to the point where that money means that you're not really getting performances anymore, then it's going to turn you off or turn you away.
You pay if the argument is that you've got to pay for quality, then we need to see that quality.
Yeah.
You can't have people being paid astronomical, unfathomably large amounts of money, 100 million or whatever it was, and then they put on that sort of performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as, going back to my analogy, it's the same as the tradesman coming, you paying him a really good hourly rate, but you get a shit job.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's a value for money kind of equation. I don't think people mind paying a lot of money for pay-per-view, provided they're guaranteed a really good card, a really entertaining performance. But anybody who paid for that stuff in Times Square and the following day in Riyadh, they were sorely disappointed as far as the value for money equation is concerned.
I suppose you can argue with the Times Square thing. Never been done before. The concept on paper was very, very interesting. The card was wonderful on paper again, and it just, on another night, that could have been amazing. It just wasn't. It didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I think that the fighters themselves are to blame for simply, as I think it was Joe that was saying, a couple of them simply didn't try.
Yeah.
And that's sort of unforgivable.
You can't blame Turkey. I mean, Turkey tried something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no blame attached to Turkey here. He picked...
like Turkey tried something new. He tried a little bit different.
Whoever was in charge of, sort of scene management or site management, they probably lost their job for not even looking into whether or not they could broadcast the fights on the Jumbotron without interfering with traffic ordinance. Like, that's a kind of sort of basic check with City Hall kind of permit thing that somebody dropped the ball on with, quite significant consequences, right?
I tell you, the surprise for me was the fact that this was a Turkey Al Sheikh show, and Turkey has proved that he likes fighters that are grabbing headlines, putting on good performances, and no matter how much money all of those fighters have got, the likes of Haney, unless it's a really interesting, who really wants to pay Haney that money again for another Turkey Al Sheikh show? You no matter how much money you've got, you've just actively halved your market value almost.
Yeah, and people in the comment section on a video I did about it, they said, "Well, Turkey's got lots of money," but that I suspect that he still expects value for the money, even though he's
Definitely.
got a lot of it. Um, yeah, I certainly am not interested in paying to see Garcia, Haney, Shull, or Canelo again. To be honest,
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's bad for the brand, and Turkey's all about the brand, the
yeah,
Riyadh,
definitely.
season thing. And if it's bad for that, he's not going to want to know again. He's going to be saying no, no, no,
Mm.
no more.
yeah, I think you're
I
right.
suppose I
Like
suppose the
he's
thing with Canelo is he knows that he can do what he likes because he's got the Crawford fight over around the corner. Doesn't matter what he does before then, does it?
Hey, have you guys noticed something interesting about the Crawford Canelo fight? Um, Dana White is no longer one of the promoters, and there's no longer that stadium in Vegas that they were going to use. There's some talk of even going to a different city. Um, that's kind of weird. So late in the game.
No.
Could be logistics. I wouldn't have thought so, but could have been a falling out between the two of them. But I'm rather glad if they have fallen out. I don't want Dana White anywhere near boxing.
Well, I'm
I just
thinking
saw
of
a couple. Sorry, I just saw a couple of videos on YouTube saying that, making that statement that the Dana White thing was, but I don't know any reasons behind it.
well, what interests me, guys, is from the fight's perspective. Because Canelo fighting in Vegas, he steps into the ring 2 rounds up. But if Canelo is fighting in Philly or New York, that equation isn't necessarily the same. So
Mm.
if you're fancying putting a few bucks on Crawford and the fight is in New York, I think you're going to have a better chance of a Crawford win than if it's Canelo in Vegas.
And I see that fight going on points as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. So do I. But to beat Canelo in Vegas is more of an uphill struggle than to beat Canelo
Mm.
in some
Mm.
other U.S. markets.
Although, do you think that sort of that scoring dynamic has changed now because it's a Turkey Al Sheikh show? Do you think that makes any difference?
Maybe, I'm not sure. Don't know.
You see,
I,
I don't think Turkey wants controversial decisions on his
No,
show.
no, same.
Again, because of the brand, he doesn't want
Yeah,
anything negative springing out from these Riyadh cards. He
yeah, I
wants to,
agree.
wonderful boxing bonanza, isn't it great? Look at me. And if he gets a dodgy decision of that magnitude, no.
Yeah, he wants to package the perfect product.
Yes, yes.
yeah, this is all a vehicle for Turkey, Riyadh season, come to Saudi Arabia, nothing bad to see here kind of story, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sports washing.
Yeah, I mean, deny the very thing you see with your own eyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting to me that there's these last minute talk of venue changes, talk of promotional backing for what could be certainly in North America the biggest fight of the year.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. And have you found that the closer we get to the fight, more people are picking Crawford, or at least giving him a better chance than they initially thought?
Yeah, I think I'm picking up on that. The thing that I'm not sure about though is how much of that is because people saw Canelo against William Skull
Yeah,
and
that's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
yeah, and thought, this fucking guy.
Well, I think there was a bit of negativity on the Crawford Madrimov performance, and I thought a little bit unfairly, just basically on the fact that he didn't stop him, saying his punch power was not carried up, this, that, and the other. He didn't look. I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked fine. I don't think the fact that he didn't stop Madrimov really makes any sort of difference. I think Crawford fits into that weight category naturally because I think the guy's massive. I think he drops a shit ton of weight. So I'd make Crawford a favourite.
Madrimov's not a bad fighter either.
No, he's not at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's awkward.
for me, I would like to see Crawford win. I'm not sure if I would make him a favorite. I don't think there's a lot in it. I don't see Canelo as being a massive favorite. maybe 55-45 for me.
I think Crawford's got more of a repertoire. I think he's got more tools to fall back on now actively in his tool bag. Canelo trades on blunt force trauma and a great chin. That seems to be what his game has just morphed into.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be close, and you know, a little nearer the time. I'll certainly be putting some money on Crawford, and I would like Crawford to win. I mean, I think, you know, no disrespect to Canelo, but I would like to see Crawford win.
I think.
I mean, Canelo hasn't shown anything of difference in last 4, 5, 6 performances.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. You know, on that note, if you look at the way he's kind of cherry picked good but not great opponents, you can slip into a sort of mindset of wherever you're having things too much your own way, and then you get someone like Crawford in there, who a smaller man, but you know, far superior to Balanga or you know. Obviously Skull, you know, but he's had things all his own way, and then suddenly you find yourself in a fight where you can't lay a glove or a clean glove on the guy, and suddenly you've got to find those old skills that have been lying dormant for the last 3-4 years. It's very difficult to do. Very difficult.
Yeah, you only become great by fighting great opponents, don't you?
And
I look at Crawford when he fought Spence, how he was able to read almost telepathically everything Spence done, almost 2 seconds ahead. And I look at what Canelo offers.
Oh, he's going to read Canelo like a book.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not that difficult a book to read.
No.
I mean, this is not, you know, Dostoevsky. This is Enid Blyton. If you look at Canelo's recent performances, it won't be difficult for him to know what's going to happen. But I don't know whether he can replicate that level of performance, because the Spence performance, I think, was one of the greatest I've seen in the last.
That was certainly his high watermark, I think.
Yes.
You know, something that we're all saying is some version of, in a way, you play to the level of your opposition, right? And that's what Canelo has potentially done. And so when all of a sudden that opposition dial is cranked all the way up, as we expect it to be with Crawford, Canelo may be physically and metaphorically on that back foot and not doing so well.
Well, I see with Canelo's last 3 or 4 performances, I don't even think he's almost boxed to the level of his opponent. I think he's boxed below that, because even below that, he still has enough to win. I think if you saw other guys against the same opponents, they'd probably have better performances. But Canelo hasn't even, because he knows he can, as you said, he can get a kind judging, you know, a kind score if he needs one, but he's still got enough just to not perform even to that level, perform under that and still win.
And it's quite revealing that he's even said in interviews, "Oh, I'm entitled to pick and choose now."
Yeah.
No. If you're a world champ, especially an undisputed champ, you've got to keep producing the goods.
Yeah, he certainly slotted into that "I'm entitled" persona very, very comfortably, hasn't he? You know, from my view, I have no problem whatsoever with a legendary champion fighting all sorts of gimmick fights at the end of their career, provided they relinquish a belt. You know, if Alexander Usyk decides to hang up all his heavyweight belts, I don't care if he goes and fights Tom Aspinall in a cage. But it's when people do what Fury used to do, that's when it's really annoying, and what Canelo is doing.
And this is coming from a place, I'm a Canelo fan, but you know, it's out there to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can be a fan of a boxer, but there's a difference between being a fan and being blind to their faults, right?
Yeah.
Fan and a fanboy.
It's our duty to be objective, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I would have hoped, and it's obviously this is wrong, but most people would want to be objective if they're boxing fans. But some people, the fanboy is the cultist, the one that likes for whatever reason, likes a fighter more than the game, and I don't really understand that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know Joe's been victim of this because Joe's objectivity is he's been called hater many times, haven't you, Joe?
Fine by me. What you like, I don't mind.
Just by people who just seem to, the term objective seems to just go over their head. And if you say anything, especially it used to be really bad around Fury, didn't it? Then it moved over to Joshua a bit.
I had somebody the other day said to me that you don't like British fighters very much, and I'm like, look, most of the fighters I happen to be covering tend to be British, so there'll be some I really like and some I don't like. I mean, it's it happens to be that Britain is doing really well in the boxing universe these days, and so there's more of them to talk about. So yeah, no, it is funny how people sort of adopt a sense of loyalty to a particular fighter, and they'll follow that fighter even though the evidence for following the fighter is long since faded.
You still nowadays get, on Facebook and Instagram, you get Mayweather fan pages.
Yes.
The guy's been fired for God knows how long. Move on. What about Usyk? What about Inoue? What about Crawford? What about any number of other modern fighters? But these people are cultists.
The best ever.
Wow. Who are we to doubt?
Well, I mean, anybody who follows any form of boxing history will rapidly come to a conclusion that the best ever during the time he was fighting might be a better name.
Yeah. Would Mayweather make the top 10 or 15 pound for pound fighters ever?
No,
I don't think so.
See, that's quite a nuanced argument because, best ever. Most people wouldn't agree with that, but that's not to say could he have beat who you regard on his night?
Oh, on a fantasy fight thing for sure.
Yeah,
but that's anyone argument. Anyone.
The same as Tyson Fury on his greatest night, and I'm not. I appreciate him as a fighter. Not really too much of a fan of the man, but who's not to say that Tyson Fury on his best night couldn't beat an Ali?
Yeah, sure.
But you could never put Tyson Fury as the greatest heavyweight ever. Ali would take that spot all day long. So that's the nuance involved, isn't it?
It's the body of work. It's the body of work. When you're talking pound for pound greats, you start with Robinson, Harry Greb, Benny Leonard,
Armstrong.
Henry Armstrong. So immediately the names come, and then after you get out of the top 10, it then becomes a little bit more subjective, and but most people will have the same top 5 names in their top 10, if you know what I mean.
Well, I went through, through hoops, performing all sorts of calculations, coming up with metrics when I did my top 10 heavyweights, for example. It's a difficult exercise.
Well, yeah, it was. Your science lost me. I'm not that intelligent enough to keep up with that. So
there was I got myself all tied in knots with the numbers, and I didn't like some of the results that were coming out and everything. It was just wild.
I'll tell you what. Did anyone see the Dave Allen interview today? I can't remember who done it. I can't remember who done it. But he was saying that he's a maths guy, he's a mathematician, and I can't remember who the interview was. He was throwing these equations at him. He was getting them like that. Dave Allen was.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I must confess to being innumerate, is it? Whatever the numerical version of illiterate is. Yeah, I'm no good with numbers.
It was quite impressive, really was.
But I think Dave might have a little bit of autism about him, or some sort. We talk about Daniel.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
I see we're closing off our time here. Shall we reconvene on episode 2?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.